More evidence of ISIS footprint expanding in India has emerged. According to intelligence officials, a 24-year-old journalist from Kerala is working with the dreaded terror outfit. Officials say the journalist has been identified as Tahrir Hassan. He joined ISIS about a year ago. Tahrir, who was working at a regional newspaper in Palakkad district of Kerala, had left for Syria. Tahrir had put out inflammatory posts on Facebook in November 2014. The post showed pictures of those fighting with him in Syria and videos urging people from across the world to join the terror outfit. Let's go across to T.S. Sudhir as well as Revati Rajivan, who join us on the phone line. First, Sudhir, to you, this revelation by the security agencies that there is a journalist who is actually even now working with the ISIS. When and how did the agencies, actually get hold of this information?
Sanket, what we are told is that he has been kind of under the radar for the last 8 months, ever since the intelligence wing of the Kerala police came to know that these kind of inflammatory posts were being posted on Facebook, on the social media site by a particular person who was working as a journalist in Palakkad district of Kerala. What they have been trying to find out in the last 8 months is that whether he was a lone wolf or whether there were other people who he was trying to indoctrinate. So what has happened is that they have tried to find out from the place where he had done his degree course in Malappuram district of Kerala. The other friends have also been under the scanner because they do realize that it's a slightly sensitive issue. The kind of posts that he has been posting on Facebook are extremely humiliating, a lot of hate material in that. The family has been claiming that they have no knowledge about this person's activity. Also the fact that they are not very sure whether he is working for ISIS or for any other terror organizations like Al-Qaeda, because there are references to Al-Qaeda also in some of the Facebook posts. So they want to proceed extremely cautiously. The political leadership, including Chief Minister Oommen Chandy, claiming no knowledge about this person's activities in India or outside. They also do not know whether the Facebook account is still active, because he has been deactivating it off and on. So it's a bit of too many question marks at the moment over this person's activities and how far he has managed to penetrate, at least in the online world, to create more people who he has managed to indoctrinate.
Okay. Sudhir, do stay on with us. Let's go across to Revati also. Revati, I believe he used to work for, a local newspaper. Can you tell us more about this newspaper? And also, have we been able to speak to these newspaper officials, perhaps if they could tell us a little about this individual? When exactly did he go abroad? Because he apparently was on an outstation assignment for this very newspaper.
Yes, Sanket, this newspaper is run by a radical organization in Kerala, and in the past this newspaper has had cases against it for spreading religious, hurting religious sentiments and spreading religious hatred. And it was after he worked for this newspaper for a short while in Kerala and then left to Qatar, where he was working as an international reporter for the same newspaper. Now, his colleagues back working in the newspaper say that after seeing posts or inflammatory posts, he had just unfriended this person. But what the intelligence officials say is that this person has had links with IS contacts in Syria only after he left to Qatar. It is only after he went to Qatar that he decided to move to Syria, and not when he was working in Kerala with this newspaper. Now, there's also confusion about whether he's working for IS or Al-Qaeda, because intelligence officials confirmed that he's working with IS in Syria, but one of his posts say that I do not work with the Islamic State, but I work for the Al-Qaeda Syria wing. So these are the two things that intelligence officials are revealing right now, Sanket.
Okay, so this seems to be a part of a strategy, but before I move on to the next breaking news that we are getting for our viewers, just want to get in T.S. Sudhir for just a short moment. Sudhir, there was some mention on his Facebook page of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Can you tell us more about what does the Facebook post say?
Well, it makes a comparison between Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and the Syrian leader, and speaks of both of them in an extremely crass and crude and humiliating terms, something which we really cannot put on air. So obviously the idea is to spread hatred, create that kind of a fear and also a hatred for the Indian Prime Minister. So obviously the idea was to indoctrinate some weak minds, perhaps in India or outside. That seems to be the motive behind getting in and making those references to Narendra Modi in some of those Facebook posts.
Okay. Okay, T.S. Sudhir as well as Revati Rajivan, thanks very much for getting us this exclusive news break. Some more breaking news coming in at this moment. The ISIS has ramped up its recruitment drive in India. Their strategy is very clear and very well organized and implemented. The ISIS is looking at a very small group of people in India, young, educated, talented professionals. Now these youth are contacted via friends and other acquaintances and are then radicalized on cyberspace. Many Indians based in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan are also reportedly trying to lure in fact, youth from the country, mostly in their 20s, to join the group. That's the latest that we are getting. That's the latest strategy. They want to hire young Indian professionals. Abhishek Bhalla of Mail Today now joins us on the phone line for more on this. Morning, Abhishek. This seems to be a new strategy by the Islamic State to hire professionals, young Indian professionals.
Yes, Ankit, that's the strategy that they have adopted. In fact, the Indians who have joined the group all have a similar profile, and the Indians who were intercepted and could not actually cross over, reach Turkey before going to Syria, also had a similar profile. In fact, I did manage to speak to 4 young boys from Hyderabad, and they too were all educated. One of them was an MBA who was working as a foreign exchange trader now. The others were young engineering students. One of them, after completing his engineering, was actually working as an engineer. So it's very clear that these people have access to internet, computers, and they can be contacted online. And that's the strategy that ISIS has adopted of radicalizing young Indian minds in the cyberspace. And they are constantly sending them videos, sending them literature, engaging in dialogue about things related to Islamic State, and that's how they are catching them.
Okay. Abhishek Bhalla, many thanks for joining us at this moment. We also have Commodore Uday Bhaskar at this moment. Mr. Uday Bhaskar, can you tell us a little about this strategy? If you could just throw some light on picking up young Indian professionals. That's a proper strategy that is in place to radicalize indeed young Indian youth. And these are not people who are from a less privileged background. They're journalists, they're engineers from very qualified backgrounds.
Yeah, this is the pattern that can be discerned. If you look at the growth of the IS, the Islamic State, as one of the most potent groups, which now I think has moved from being non-state to the equivalent of a quasi-state organization, it is clear that they have invested in a very intense manner in recruiting through the available cyber platforms, particularly social media. Now, there have been some preliminary studies about the strategy of the IS, particularly in relation to catchment areas both in Western Europe as also in North America. And the pattern is very similar to what your correspondent, Mr. Bhalla, has just outlined, that they are targeting a certain cross-section of educated youth, which would be seen as the equivalent of susceptible to the kind of propaganda / motivational material that is being put out. And the numbers speak for themselves, because as I said, if you look at the last 18 months, there has been a steady infusion of relatively younger people, professionals, educated, many of them with the equivalent of a science or an IT background, who have been drawn to what you might call as the image of the Islamic State. Yes, many of them either leave because they are disillusioned, some of them have lost their lives. But it does point to the efficacy of the outreach through cyber, through social media. And the footprint for South Asia is that India has been identified as a very rich catchment area. And I think what we are now seeing in relation to this journalist from Kerala, who has been identified, and he, by the way, is not the first such quote-unquote recruit who has been drawn towards these extreme ideologies, whether the IS or the Al-Qaeda, there seems to be some kind of a blur over there. But I think for India, this is a reality. We have to deal with it in a very calibrated way and not, I don't think the amber lights are flashing as of now. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Commodore Uday Bhaskar, many thanks for joining us at this moment. Abhishek Bhalla from Mail Today, T.S. Sudhir, as well as Revati Rajivan for getting us that news break. Thanks very much.